Right, I'm here to talk about sea breezes and convergence. What qualifies me to talk about it, mostly because I've been flying for a long time, 45 years, and the first 20 years was a lot of learning by experience, learning by luck a lot of the time. You know, something had happened and gradually you start working out what was happening. And then the last 20 years have been so much easier, because once you understand what's happening, you know, you can actually look at something and decide, yeah, if I go there, I'm going to have a good time, or not have a good time, because it works both ways. So that's my background. It's basically picking up experience as I go, and then now with the internet and other tools we've got, we can actually see what's going on. I mean, if you look at satellite pictures during the day and at the end of the day, or RASP, you know, you've got brilliant pictorials of what's going to be happening. So, I love this picture. Big swirl over the top of Westbury. That's looking north from Westbury with a high cloud base. And this is a day where I try and leave the camera on all the time. You just get to fly around the convergence cloud. I mean, convergence is not always that useful for cross-country flying, but it's the most picturesque flying you can get sort of going up. Sometimes they can be, the wedges of cloud can be like a few thousand foot deep, and you can just sort of wade around them, which is really sort of quite spectacular. So tonight, so what I was going to go through, there's just the basics to understand it, and then I'll split it into sea breezes without convergence, because there's a few scenarios where you won't get convergence, but there are sea breezes, and it has its use. The most useful one is certainly sea breezes with convergence, especially with the Bristol Channel being so close, because it's a fairly small feature, and it affects lots of local sites in different ways. I'm going to stop at this point here, how and where convergence forms. This is just going through the factors that are influencing convergence, because you need to think about those. That's the basis of your day, and you can never form hard and fast rules about how it's going to form, because there's so many different influences. It needs a bit of interpretation and imagination. And then going through several worked examples. I'm going to start with the south coast, where it's a more classic northerly wind coming down to the coast, with a classic perpendicular wind coming in, and the two converge, and it's easy to see the easy cases that we get. And then I moved to the Bristol Channel, where it starts to get a bit more haphazard, not so strong, but equally useful. Just a couple of minutes on the tools to help knowledge building, because the easiest way to gain knowledge is to actually watch what's going on, whether it's at work, you know, use your second screen with a satellite picture during the day, and watch everything moving around. It's really interesting, sort of looking at RASP and trying to get a view of what RASP thinks it's going to do, and you can look at it and think, yeah, this is what I think is going to happen, and then watch what's actually happening. Obviously, with the view from above, all you can see is a two-dimensional view, so you're usually seeing the boundary of the cloud inland, which is usually the top bit of the convergence. A big thing about convergence is the whole thing comes in as a wedge, and that wedge is really important for us. So you won't be able to see the wedge, but you know, with the satellite view you'll see what's there above. And then just 3 minutes of video from flying around at Westbury and convergence. It's such a nice place to be. I won't say much on here. This is just copied from Wikipedia. So you've got the land there, sea, or it has to be a very big lake. It's heating up, lower pressure, unstable air really helps. Everything's going up. Basically, the air gets pulled in. The principle is as simple as that. So you can get a really stable day that might not be quite so warm, quite often like that in the winter, and you have nothing happening, or you can get a really unstable day with really high temperatures, and you might get 20 miles an hour wind being pushed in, and everything in between. There's lots of things that go on up above, but it's so different in so many circumstances. We'll come to that in the worked examples. Right, sea breezes without convergence. I've got two slides here. Here's the easy one. So the scenario is there's no wind and conditions exist for a sea breeze. So you've got high temperature and some instability. So all my diagrams are very generic, so don't take them too literally. All I'm trying to depict there is every bit of coastline, a major bit of sea, the air is being pulled perpendicular-ish. Over here in our area, it's going all over the place, mostly as depicted there. With an odd one here, it always seems to follow up the Severn estuary there for some reason.
Just follows the shape of that.
Yeah. That's generically what's happened. So with no wind, there's no convergence. What use could that be? I'd use that in the summer if it isn't particularly unstable inland and you just want to get some flying. You just go to the coast. So I might go with baritone in here, but I know I'm not going to have a particularly good day, so you might as well go to the coast and have some fun. This is possibly one of the most useful bits of information about sea breezes, because when you've got a wind that's following the direction that the sea breeze is going to manifest in, you're not getting any convergence. But what you are getting is you get an area where the two winds compound. I don't think it's as simple as adding 12 and 5 and getting 17, but it's something like that. You know, you will get a much stronger wind in that area there. A great example in our area, we're at Westbury, it's really unstable, and the wind that you start with is west, so we get a light wind. The sea breeze has got nothing to push against. There's no displacement needed, so it just follows the wind, and it will come through Westbury. It comes through Oliver's and Milk. On good days, they've had it at Vale, which is the gliding club next to Convergence. So that gives you an idea of how intense that activity can happen. And again, learning by experience. We go to Westbury years ago before we knew better. I'd be flying around in crap air, maybe seeing a cumulus form at 3,000, and then find out 70 miles north, they've got 5,500, 6,000 cloud base. What's going on, and it's because that sea air is killing things, so you really don't want to be in the sea air unless you want some flying next to the hill on a moustache or whatever. Any questions on that before I move on?
Yeah. You speak a lot about Westbury. What is in Westbury? What is coming from the west or from the south of the sea breeze?
It tends to. I've got Westbury in a work example. It tends to come from the west. I'll be going through a few examples where if the wind is from the north, it struggles to push against it, but the more it starts tending to the northwest, it's going to find it easier to push against it, and when it's west, there's no problem at all, and it just rushes through. But if you were to go on a light wind day, if you were to go over the back and head southwest, you can get to the point where Convergence is coming in across Somerset. There's Westbury, there's the Bristol Channel. It's difficult to see this, isn't it? And you can follow a line where it might be working, and there's an obvious blue bit where you don't want to go, but then you get far enough. I'm trying to remember where it was. I think I was near Crewkerne, somewhere down the A33. The sea breeze was coming in from the front, and amazingly, the two lines on this particular day, it formed a V where everything was blue, apart from the wedge where I come from. So I knew I could get to there, sneak out and get a turn point to maximise distance, and then come back again.
I think it is rare, but there have been days where you can fly Westbury on a westerly sea breeze and Mere on a southerly sea breeze right at that point. It's like squeezing right now.
Yeah. I was going to say, if anybody's got any questions, just ask as and when it's easier while we've got context.
Well, in terms of when the sea breeze gets to Westbury, on a westerly, how early can you get there?
In a west, it could be very quick because there's nothing to push against it.
Yeah.
It could be like midday, 12:31. So yeah, it can happen very quickly. I've got Frocester as an example, and that's where it happens very quickly as well. If the wind's west, there's not a lot to push against it, and it rises up and comes in pretty early there.
So you found that it takes it off the head of Frocester, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Because the wedge will come in and the wind goes around to the southwest, and it's difficult. Right, sea breezes with convergence. I think I got this from Wikipedia. Now this is just a very generalistic, I've called it classic convergence. What you typically find happening in its purest form down on the south coast, where you've got northerly air and a nice southerly sea breeze, and the two are hitting. And what are you getting? I mean, it's drawn like this, but it's actually doing that. So it's not only going up, but you have got air rushing along there. So that's the simple principle. You'll have a good soaring opportunity there. Good soaring opportunity out there. In between, it can get very difficult, especially if, partly because the cloud often gets a bit disjointed up here, so you lose some on the ground. And also, if you start dropping down here, if you get into this area where you hit the warm air, you're pretty much toast, unless you can scurry out and get back up again. So really, you need to be over here or over there. And it doesn't just form like that. The day heats up, sea breeze starts, it comes through as a wedge, and I think the next slides I'm showing more about progression, but it will progress inland, obviously dependent on how strong the sea breeze is, how hot and how unstable it is, and then you've got the opposing wind, where it could be anything. I mean, most bizarrely, hasn't happened to me for a long time, because I tend not to fly in strong winds now, but on the south coast I had a day back in the late 80s, I think it was, where I was flying down here and it was okay. I could see sailplanes out to sea, about 3 miles out, just seeing me cruising up and down. And I thought, well, I was on hang glide, I thought, I'll try it. I mean, it was a long way out. And I went out, and it was the most beautiful line of convergence. 3 miles out to sea, looking back, just flying along the coast. So it isn't necessarily always falling there. It can form out here if that wind is strong enough to push it out.
What was so surely the Met wind was obviously, so the convergence line was out at sea, so the Met wind was pushing out to sea.
Yeah.
So what was the glide like getting back after you were done knocking around with it?
Oh, I mean, I was up at 6,000 feet, so
no worries.
3 miles is no problem, even in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Okay, there'll be more on this, but any questions before I move on about the basics?
So, this is a very simple view. At Westbury, the hill is facing roughly out to sea, if you see what I mean, approximately out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
So your prevailing direction, the wind direction you've made a choice to go out to fly that day, will be northwesterly to west-northwesterly. And one will presume that your sea breeze will arrive from southwest to west.
The sea breeze always tends to arrive from the west, but you'll get different behaviours depending on whether it's northwest or west.
Yeah. So by and large, what we're looking at is not what's on this picture. I'm sure you're going to get to this.
This is more of a simplistic cross-section of head-on, but then you've got all the other variations.
I can imagine a lot of sites.
And changes in wind speed on both sides of the fence.
An awful lot of sites, you won't get this. What you're looking at is a sea breeze arriving from some oblique angle, or even with the wind direction, the general meteorological wind direction that you've made that choice to go and fly that day.
Yeah. I mean, it was about 10 years ago, I was up in Yorkshire, and it was a crappy day. I think we're getting up to 2,500. We just dribbled out. Very, very weak lift. I got to the coast, and it wasn't especially sunny either. I sort of got lower, so I was going to land on the edge. And I was getting close to landing. I was like 50 feet above the ground, and all of a sudden I noticed that there was actually a sea breeze. A tiny little wedge there, blowing at 4 or 5 miles an hour. It matters when you're landing. It matters more for a hang glider pilot because there's greater speed, so downwind landing would be faster. But you guys will get caught out as well. So, and that's actually the source of quite a few accidents. People coming down and assuming that it's a north wind. If this is north in this example, coming down, actually you're steering the other way. So if you do come down in this area, like you probably will, if you're doing a flight to the coast, you probably want to maximise your distance. You know, always bear in mind what's going on. And keep on checking it all the way down, because it can be north up there, north, and then south.
So I suppose the way to do it is probably not to, what people often do, which is get to the coast with 2,000-3,000 foot at the end of XC, and just bang a whole load of wing areas, get down as quickly as possible to the beach. You should probably be like circling slowly, just sampling the areas you go down.
Watching everything that's going on. To, you know, I mean, the coast, you've usually got flags, which is great.
Yeah.
Right, here's 3 schematics where I'm trying to talk about how the wind is going to move inland. And I've got three scenarios where the opposing wind on the south coast is 5 mile an hour north, 10 and 15. And what I'm trying to depict is with the light wind, it's going to start encroaching in somewhere by midday. But with a bit of wind, I mean even by 4 p.m. The convergence line can be here over near Crawley and halfway to London. I'm only showing the top of the convergence line, but that would be a wedge, so the bottom of it will be further.
So hypothetically here, you would be flying, never been there, but Devil's Dyke, and you'd be looking for this convergence line behind the hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, there'd be 2 things going on. There'd be the convergence line, but because it's coming in that way as a wedge.
Yeah.
What they usually get is lots of disturbance actually on the hill, and quite often they know they have to get off the hill because within 20 minutes the wind blows from the south and day over. So, I'll come on to case examples later, but if you get up and it comes through, obviously it means you're landing. If you're going back to where you started from, you're going to be landing the other way, which is an odd sensation.
I mean, this is obviously not, this can't show a wind gradient, can it? So this is just assuming like wind on the ground.
So I say again?
So obviously this can't show a wind gradient. You're saying you've got 5 mile an hour coming, you know, met wind coming in, but up at 2,000 foot you're going to have 10, 15. But there's no way to re-visualise that. But is it literally like a slope? Will it be like a convergence line?
I'll describe it this way. The sea breeze comes in as a wedge like that, and the convergence is at the top.
Right.
We will find pockets of lift here, but it's very disorganised, and because even the top tends to be lower, you don't want to be even lower. Working through the examples, I've depicted a 10 mile an hour wind, same strength sea breeze. You'll probably find that by 4 p.m. 10 miles an hour is enough to fend it off, and it hasn't progressed quite so far inland. And here with 15 is getting close to opposing a reasonable sea breeze, and you might find we've got good soil conditions here on the South Downs, and the convergence is limited to this area here. Right, now we're coming to Westbury. Westbury is the flat block, and it does start to become more complex working out what's going on, because the convergence isn't always quite as clear. I mean, the classic convergence on the South Downs, because it's a truly opposing wind, because it's usually a very unstable day because it's north, you can have monumental lift. I mean, I've had 2,700 foot per minute up underneath convergence on the South Downs. I mean, it was scary. I didn't really need that much lift.
What's that in normal? Maybe
No, meters per second. I think
yeah, it's like 6.
Not the 0 off on 13 and a half, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more than we need.
Yeah.
But here, I've worked through the two scenarios. This one is the cleanest one to work out. When you've got a northerly, there's more energy to work against, so it has more difficulty progressing inland. You very often get a line forming here. Now, you certainly get a line forming here because of the high ground around Longley, and physical features often act as a barrier. And I've had so many flights where I'm down here and I start getting low, it gets all really raggedy and difficult, and then you bounce up and then you just go like that, because it's just so consistently good. I haven't done it quite a few times now. There's a pattern and it's how it is. And what I've tried to depict here, now moving into the other dimension, that's the top of the convergence line, but there's the wedge coming through. So if you're down on the hill, you're not going to have a very good time because it's passed through and you're just being in the crappy sea air. That's when it gets a bit stronger. And you sit on the hill, you know, you might be at 100, 200 feet, and you're watching people out here at thousands thinking, why can't I get up there? It's because you're in the sea air and they're in convergence. All the drier air that is above the sea air.
But just as it's coming in, you might have got some good climbs just in this.
Yeah, as the wedge is coming in all the way up, it tends to be bouncy for a while. So if that's going to happen, that's your opportunity to work something, get up and dive at the convergence.
So either you should already be on the hair when it's coming, right?
Yeah, you want to be. Ideally, you want to be ready and up, so you can go into it rather than you'll never work up into it from the sea breeze. It's pretty much day over.
Is it always such a hard barrier though? Because I think there are situations like you mentioned where it feels really, really, really awful in the first kind of 100 foot near the hill, and you realise people way out there. Is there a point where you're gonna fly through it and think, oh wow, this is it, I'm in now, great, up to base or whatever?
It's so variable because it depends. It's all dependent on the strength of that wind, the temperature and instability, which is the strength of the wind coming in. So you've got both of those. It's a bit like saying how long's a piece of string.
Right.
It might be really mild, or on a really unstable day, it might be really ferocious.
So I guess you just have to have tried it so many times where you're going to know based on the conditions of the day what it's going to be like.
Yeah. I've got some on the video right at the end. I've got a few pictures, and I'm sure you've seen it where in the distance you can see the dark bits hanging down, and you know that's indicative of it's on its way. It's just working out whether it's going to get there. So if this is strong enough, it might not work its way in, it might still be out there. And the more it tends towards northwest, and certainly west, it will come through.
So it does have a signature then. In other words, you can spot it. You can actually visibly see the effect of it, a signature in the sky. Or is that always the case? Sometimes the case, never the case. What would you look for in the sky if you could see anything at all? If you could see condensation due to it, what does it look like?
It's can you wait, or should we nip to the start of that video now? It might actually.
No, fine. You just carry on. You just carry on.
You'll see. I mean, you inland. You'll see a good cloud base. That's further east. I'm at Westbury, and then you turn around and you look further out towards the Bristol Channel, and then you'll see some chunks of cloud hanging down. It might just be a few hundred feet. It might be more, and you'll see those very obvious chunks hanging down, usually darker because there's more moisture, and then you know it's on its way. Pretty much at Westbury, you will always see it out there. Sometimes it's just a long way away because it's not coming in. I was actually looking through the video, and it's me making theories up. It's just something I spotted while looking at the video and thinking, how am I going to explain it? We've got a massive range of hills there, and through the video, I'm pretty sure I can see what is. It's almost like two separate threads. Sea breezes do tend to follow the easy path, and because you've got such a large feature there, you're going to get sea breeze coming in by the side of it, which is going to be doing something. It's only in the video example, if you slow it down and stare at it for long enough, you can see an area of convergence here, and another one over there, like it's disconnected.
I live in Weston, and so quite often like it'll be.
You're probably seeing it all the time.
Yeah, west to west, southwest in Weston, and it'll be still, and it might have been like a northwesterly all day at Westbury.
Yeah.
People said like the sea breeze is coming, it still kind of stayed pretty northwesterly. So
Yeah.
it seems like it kind of, there's a bunch that kind of come straight through the levels, through the Somerset levels, like south of the Mendips, and then like another lot tends to come around and still keeps it a bit northwesterly.
Yeah. If living at Westbury, if you've got say a northwesterly wind, when it's strong, it will never penetrate any further, and as it tends towards a lower wind speed, then the sea breeze is going to find it easier to come in. That's the principle.
Do you happen to have seen the forecast and the windy for today? Because right now, it's a hell of a lot like that picture on the right.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So what was the wind direction today?
Looks like it altitude west or westerly.
Oh right, okay. Yeah.
The UKV model is like really shows it up, really strong.
Right,
No, close.
It's very high numbers, isn't it? It's something to go with.
Right, how and where convergence forms.
Yeah.
So I was just going to recap on some of the key things. So you've got 4 variables. One is the strength of the sea breeze, and that's dictated by the level of instability and temperature. And then you've got the strength and direction of the prevailing wind coming in, and also the shape of the coastline is having a bearing on it. So it's quite difficult to explain something when you've got all those variables where you've got the two sources of energy, sea breeze and the wind, that are working against each other, and then the direction of the wind can change, causing different effects. So this means there's no hard and fast rules. You are going to have to look at RUS, look at satellite pictures, build knowledge, and use some imagination. It's almost like amateur mechanics. You know how when 2 billiard balls collide and you know they're going to go a certain direction. That's all you're talking about with air masses. They're colliding and they're going to do something. If it's head on, there's no option but to go up. If they're converging, then the waters tend to converge and move along the line. Important to stay in the right air, so you either fly in A or B, in convergence or inland. If you faff around here, you're more likely to drop down. So if you're doing that, you really do have to run to that area there, because that's where you're going to get up if you're low. Now, being in this bit here you do still get bits and pieces of thermals kicking off, but nothing like on a good day what you're getting in A and B.
No, but you're trying to be kind of at B as the sea breeze front comes in, or can you still kind of do like a glide from A to B, or is that like a glide to the deck?
It varies. I mean, I've had days on the South Downs where it's generally blue across the whole country, and you're just getting a few cumulus forming as parts of the sea breeze and the air nearby it. And conditions like that, you can actually get quite close. Or you can have days where there's massive instability. This is big. It might even be towering up to cumulus, and or just large clouds, and it's so big, it's actually killing a whole area here. So it's more difficult to get to there. And as you say, if you're interested in cross country and miles, I mean, really stay around and keep out the sea breeze. It's great fun, but it's not good for long consistent flights unless we're in Australia and you really can just run for 100 miles.
Some pilots do claim that you could link up, say the classic, fly from Frocester down to the coast, and then you could work convergence further east to extend your XC.
Yeah, I've got that as an example, and it's it only really works if the wind's reasonably strong,
Right.
because it needs to hold off the sea breeze, because you're so close to the airport and it's coming in as a wedge. You're in a difficult place there. And yeah, the last point it's hard work learning by experience. So if you want to do it, use rasps to try and build a feel for where the convergence is going to form, and either look at satellite pictures, which is a fairly simplistic plan view, but it works well. But whenever you're out, I mean, I'm sure we're all taking an interest in the sky. You see the blue wedge coming in, and just sit back and think about it and self-teach. It all works.
You use SkySight?
I have done. I have done. Yeah.
Okay. Is that any good for spotting convergence? Because I know that some people said it's...
I can't remember. I stopped using it 2 years ago. But Rasp does it well.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's as good as Rasp.
In terms of really rough air on Paragliding, for example, where potential danger areas around hot and everything.
I was going to ask that.
It's totally different. I mean, I think some of the roughest air I've had is west going across the River Severn where the sea breeze underneath. I remember getting trashed to hell. Actually, I think there were some accidents down below that day. I remember thinking, I wonder what this would be like on a paraglider. But I was down on the South Downs in that 13.5 metres per second for the youngsters, or 2,700 feet per minute for the rest of us. And I was holding on for grim death, thinking, when I exit this, it's going to be awful. And it was really subdued, and I just floated off. So
Have you flown wave?
yeah.
So is it like wave? Is it similar to wave?
No, it's absolutely nothing like. Oh, it's
going in and out.
well, wave rotor.
Yeah, because that's gnarly, isn't it?
It can be really bad. Yeah. But yeah, the turbulence here it can be quite disturbing. Yeah.
As similar to the wave turbulence? Because the one I've always
I
wondered.
haven't known.
Okay.
You get really bad wave turbulence when it's really windy.
Yeah, because that's the
I've
one
only
thing.
flown
When I started out paragliding, I asked my instructor, wave flying in winter on a paraglider, would you give it a go? He said, absolutely not, because it'll just be rough as. But if it's any worse than a convergence, a rough patch of convergence, about the same, worse?
Panel's a piece of string.
Right.
It can be really bad. Yeah.
So Neville, is this something that flying a floppy paraglider we should be avoiding?
I don't know is the answer. I mean, I've been up in Convergence at Westbury where Simon or Tim have been up there, and they're clearly handling it.
Rules
fine,
don't
so.
apply. Same rules don't apply to them.
There's only one way to find out then.
You'll be alright, right?
Yeah.
You'll be alright for it.
You can't be scared of being shot at.
Have you been shot at?
Yeah.
Who by?
Well, I flew the firing range when it was live ammunition.
Oh, right, yeah.
I crash landed in the rotor of front-flying cow's bow and crash landed.
This was 70s, wasn't it?
Yeah. I crashed right in the middle of the live firing range.
That's next not to talk
But
about.
I felt a lot safer on the firing range with live bullets than I did up there.
How are we doing for time, by the way? Do people need a sort of quick break partway through?
Could do. You could have one. Yep.
I'm okay.
Let's take 5 minutes then, shall we? Yep.
I just where are we? I'll just finish this slide. Yeah, I'll finish this slide and then we're stop for 5 minutes, isn't it? Right, so this is really just summing up. I've said it again, I'll say it once more. Be decisive about staying at A and B. You will go down loitering at D. C, obviously you have to use that to get out to B. And like at Westbury, it can work a bit going out to the convergence when you're going ahead, but do try to do it up above rather than using the below it. Good south coast convergence, it can be stupidly strong. I mean, I think I've had a stronger day than that, but I didn't go very close to cloud base because it was early 80s. I think the base was only 4,000. I think the tops are at like over 15, it was a big day, and I flew my early 80s hang glider in a straight line for about 3 miles going up. I've never had anything quite like that. And you could see it was this line just went on forever. It looked quite scary.
But you stayed out the white room? You stayed out the white room?
Oh god, yeah, I flew out the other side and just came down there. Sometimes quite rough, but like we just discussed, unpredictable. The last point, don't get caught out with switching wind and landing approaches if you're anywhere near this area here. Right. Should we take a break and then go through that?
No problem.
Thank you. Right, part 2. This is probably the easiest way of visualising convergence. I'm going to go through several work examples. There's a few on the south coast with the more simplistic either square on or clearly 90 degrees on. And then we work inland to this area where we've got 4 or 5 sites where sea breezes do affect us. Right, I don't know if you recognise this. We've got Brighton there. There's a bit sticking out near Eastbourne and Portsmouth over there. So, South Downs coming from Coombe and beyond. Assuming we're coming from Coombe, assuming we're going to have some wind, typically coming this way. Convergence quite often forms. The big problem you've got in, I can't remember who it was we were talking to earlier about it, but if you're flying in light winds, then the problem you will have will be in this area. By the time you get here and the sea breeze is marching through, I mean that's Gatwick Airport there, and you're in between, a rock and a hard place there, so that makes it difficult. So ideally, it's either not a strong sea breeze, or you've got enough wind to hold it back. You get some slightly odd effects as well, with the coastline going round a bit more to the north around here. You always tend to get a weird effect here where quite often the sea breeze will actually tend to come in very slightly from the west, and then it really gets compounded here and you get this really strong funnel going around there. That is really rough. Are you talking about where can it be rough? I've been through that bit there at least 3 times, and it's really quite nasty. And then it smooths out, and then you get the bit inland that Mark Watson and everybody else uses for flying across to the tip of Kent.
Theoretically though, you reckon you could hit that line from Frocester, somewhere like that, and then all the way to the Classic, and then, because that is the plan, isn't it, and then just keep going with it to the east?
Oh yeah, you can do that, yeah. We've done it on hang gliders.
Yeah.
But it's usually been on sort of strongish days.
Yeah.
I mean, the impediment is as soon as the wind goes down, that convergence line comes in. So that at the top of the cloud, it's going to look like that. So when you've got a 4,500 limit here, you're really cramming yourself in. This area, South Downs still, in an east-northeast or northeast wind is absolutely brilliant, and it's as in the second line there, it's most useful I think on high pressure days where the whole of the south might be blue, we can't see where the lift is, and you go down here and you've got the wind coming in from this direction, unstable enough to form a sea breeze, and quite often you do get a nice line of clouds forming with it. So all of a sudden your blue day gets transformed into a day where you can see where you need to go. And you start, because you've got the South Downs here, that's rising ground up to the point here where it's typically around sort of 600 to 800 feet. So it's having to go uphill, so that's almost slowing it down as the sea breeze progresses in. And unless it's a really strong sea breeze or it's a particularly weak wind, it quite often comes in there and it gives you this whole playground of rising air in that position there. And from there you can do stuff like flying along here in really buoyant air so much better than what everybody else is getting in land. So that's a plus point for those two sites there. But even if it is strong and it's going to come in, you can just use it as a starting point. And you could fly inland, and assuming the wind's light, and then come back again and put down where you started from.
Now, what sort of factors influence how strong the sea breeze is?
The level of instability, more unstable, the stronger sea breeze, and also the higher the temperature as well. The higher the temperature gets. If you have both, then it will be ballistic.
Here's a quick one for you. Now, if you, I know obviously hang glider pilot, assume you're on a really, really crappy old hang glider. Do you reckon if you're flying that with the Met breeze coming from the northeast, do you think you could theoretically launch it back and do a kind of out and return all the way to Mercury and then all the way back, or is that the influence of that Met breeze coming from the east just going to be too much for you to try and work your way back?
I mean, from this side, you'd always start using ordinary inland thermal air, circle up, and then get into it if you thought it was the best thing to do. I mean, sometimes you do get days where, excuse me, where the convergence might form out there, and you can see it's much lower. It might be at, let's say, 3,000 feet, and out here you can fly up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet.
Yeah. And would you try and work your way back, or is it just not worth
Well, no,
it?
I mean, no certain. As long as you haven't got an airspace problem, it might be easier to come out because being higher above the ground makes it easier. And also, just working a distribution of clouds is easier than using convergence because there's a bit of black magic with where it's going and how it's falling. Right, most of you probably know Bell Hill, don't you? Yeah, just close to Blandford Forum, which is here. Got a range of hills that come around there, and also the Cranbourne Hills there. You're usually flying in a wind, either northwest or west-northwest. Now, I've drawn the sea breeze coming in that way. Basically, because the drawing's all aiming at vertical arrows, but it more comes in from a slightly sort of south-southwest or in southwest angle. So you can imagine if you've got two winds doing that, it's a bit like Westbury and a westerly where it converges very quickly and comes in. So the sea breeze can come through the hill quite early there on good days, quite often, 12:30, 1:30, and you can't do this now. I'm going back to the 1980s before all this Class C airspace was here. But we used to find that you get a clear line there, then there'd be an obvious break. You get a clear line there, and then a break, and then it would restart again. So it's being affected by the geography of the coastline.
Is that new, that bit of airspace?
I think the 1990s, something like that. It was about a decade. I've got a brilliant photograph flying across here at about 3,000 foot, looking at Southampton, looking down the wing, and I used it in a Skywinds article about a decade ago. Somebody wrote into the letters page, you're an absolute cowboy, Not thinking it was taken in 1984 or whatever it was. Another good aspect of convergence is getting a reduced headwind. In this example, if the two winds converging, as the winds come together and as they go up, you haven't got a headwind component. But if you wanted to do something a bit more challenging, actually going that way becomes quite easy because you're not working against a headwind, because it's going up, so you just fly through it, which is really useful. And there's quite a few sites where we can do stuff like that. That bit I was talking about earlier with Westbury and northerly wind, where the westerly wind forms across the hill near Alfred's Tower on the way up and through. On there on the return leg, that mitigates the wind, and you can just fly with a zero headwind, making it easier to get back.
So presumably at that point though, the convergence is actually quite far from Bell Hill, so you've actually already, at what point have you climbed out and gone for it and been like, okay, I see the convergence line now? like time of day. You're probably trying to-
Oh yeah. You're always you're always looking behind you, working out what's going on and making sure you're up and doing something. And that something can be a few things. I mean, I had a flight last year or the year before where it wasn't an especially good day, and I came down here and I just had some really nice time flying in the Convergence down here, but then I ended up dropping out of it because it all got too complicated. And I had to fly to this area here really low to get back up in the inland area. I mean, that I lucked out then, but it's a great example of making sure you don't get caught out. I've also had another flight, which was lovely, where I got up coming this way, and then the Convergence came in, and even though it was quite a strong headwind, because the convergent air was going up, no headwind, I mean, I think I flew that way, I don't know, 20 miles or so that way, which is quite nice when the wind's doing 15 miles an hour, just to go down zoom and do that. And then all I had to do with the wind, inland wind doing this, is fly out over to here to make a triangle and then drift back in again. It's just using the air and energy to do something fitting.
Yeah. What happens as the day kind of goes on? So like, sometimes it might kind of come in past the site and pushes past you and you just fall out like into the sea breeze and behind it. Other times I guess it might stay roughly where you are and you can stay on the front of it and just keep using it. But does it kind of, when it starts receding, does it just all kind of like die off and stops lifting, or does it start like receding back out towards does the front drift that back out towards the sea?
As the day goes on and you start tending towards the afternoon, I mean, the instability is calming down inland and the sea breeze gradually dies down. But I mean, I've often left Ringstead where a sea breeze is still churning away at 7, 8 o'clock at night. But I tend not to observe that bit of the day because I've been trying to do something different with it earlier. So I'm in the same camp as you really. But generally it builds up, it reaches a peak, and it will stay with that with the instability through the afternoon, and then die down as the late afternoon evening progresses.
Is it guaranteed to be gone by sunset? Really?
No.
Wow. And how long's a piece of string? Yeah.
Not that you would say if you'd ever had it. Sunset, of course not.
I've been out there flying as the sun's been disappearing, and it's still obviously a sea breeze because there was no back wind. So.
Sometimes, doesn't it come the other way, off the land then, reverses round the other way?
I believe so, yeah.
Through the night as well, yeah.
I've never...
I know that at Rosilly Cliffs, quite often, this is it, isn't it? Back in the olden days, it was quite consistent that you'd have a westerly sea breeze at Rosilly Down throughout the afternoon, and at about 6:30, 7 o'clock, the breeze would switch to a northerly on the cliffs.
That early.
And we would be able to saw the cliffs then all the drinkers on the terrace of the Worm's Head Hotel, and we'd be dive bombing them and
That's a fun
having a bit of fun. Yeah, you'd love it on the moustache. I can just picture you on the moustache. But it was great fun. Great fun.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Vale Hill. I think we're going to move a bit further north. Westbury, back to that same picture. So the Bristol Channel is quite a weak feature. I mean, how much water does it take to make a sea breeze? Clearly a river doesn't do it, it's not big enough. For those that have been to Macedonia, Lake Ochrid, off to the southwest, that's big enough to form a sea breeze. We see it there and pushing up behind us. Not a massive feature, but...
How big is that lake then?
I think it's 8, 9, 10 miles long, something like that. And so it's quite a...
So the Italian lakes could do it.
Sorry?
Italian lakes could do it. Garden or
Mm. So I mean, the good thing for us at Westbury is it is quite a weak feature. I think if that was a straight coastline, it would really ruin our flying because the sea breeze is just be coming in all the time, like it is at some of the southern sites, you know, where the sea breeze kills it, and it's just unsurable. The good thing about coming from the north, there's more energy to work against, so it's more difficult for it to penetrate in, and it holds it off, which is typically what we want. It's nice getting the convergence, but we don't want to lose good soil. And yeah, that line there, as I said earlier, I'm repeating myself, it's a thing you do when you get older. It's so consistent. I think the next slide is moving on to westerly and a northwest wind. Any questions on this one before I move on? Okay.
So what time of day typically? I guess that's a different question, isn't it? I suppose towards the end of the day.
Give me a level of instability, which is strength of the sea breeze, and give me a wind speed.
Yeah.
And you know, it could be anything. I mean, if that is strong, it's never going to happen because the sea breeze will only stay here. If it isn't so strong and it's really unstable and warm, that could push through. It could push through at 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So
often it's around tea time, isn't it? On a classic day. Goes around to the west.
From the north. I don't know. I haven't really measured it often enough, but for sure enough, it's good that in the north. The key thing is that the north wind keeps the convergence line further out, so there's less chance of the day being destroyed.
I mean, realistically, though, for a paraglide, it's not very achievable for us to get to that line. If it's a strong northerly wind, we have to cross. What is that? That's easily 10, 15k late in the day to get there. So that's quite tricky for us. That.
Yeah. Although I suppose you can sort of zigzag like that, and you know, you use it just to top up on the way out there. Northwest, which is probably, I mean, this is probably our biggest use case in terms of when you're going to experience it at Westbury, where the wind's more to the northwest. There's less energy to push against. It's the sea breeze makes its way in. You're very typically getting this convergence line here forming. As I mentioned, it may be doing a bit of a split here, and you can sometimes see some bits down here. And then this is quite variable. I mean, there's often very, very obviously. There's the wedge coming in, so this is the top of the wedge here, and that's the bottom of the wedge, and that's been working its way in. And very often, I mean, above that wedge, you know, it will be buoyant, but inconsistent.
Yeah, so now what's the orange line? Where would you position that in the wedge? Is that the front of the wedge, or is that the top?
That's the top. That's
top.
cloud base where all the tentacles are hanging down. It's the bit you want to be in. Yeah.
With the lower side of the wedge on the right, higher side on the the Met side.
So that really answers my question from earlier, because I can see now visually what's going on here. But this introduces a question that relates to the strength of your convergence, because here you have to take vectors. So what you're really looking at is the strength of the convergence is dependent on the cosine of the angle. Half the angle, the cosine of half the angle between the two.
You know, I left that space there. I was going to say that, but I didn't put it into words.
Do you see what I mean?
I know exactly what you're trying to say. But
it's difficult to articulate in words. But really, if you're doing that, then if these two are equal, then you'll get a stronger convergence than if you're doing that.
Yeah, well, treat it as two winds.
Yeah.
It's either head on, in which case there's no option but to go up. It can't physically do anything else. But it's when it's no longer at 180 degrees, and it starts to do.
So the effectiveness of this scenario is complex, because even though you're Convergence might theoretically not be as good. This is a great day when everyone's on the hill. This is a better day when everyone's going on the hill anyway. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not as simplistic as the generic image there,
Yeah.
because you've got the strength of that. The direction will always be consistent, because it's the Bristol Channel wind, sea breeze, but the strength will vary depending on the instability and temperature in land, and then you've got the strength and direction of the wind, which are both variable. So yeah, add a few cosigns in, and that tells you how you'll go.
So what's the, have you just straight push up that line once, and how far close to the coast did you get from Westbury? When you're running to airspace, aren't you? Pretty close.
Surprisingly, not that far out, because by the time you've started picking it up, sometimes around here, you find you can work your way out. But with the sea breeze marching in, that's putting a cap on how far out you can get. I think that the in terms of length of flight, going this way is often better as that wedge is pushing across that way, and you can use the lift going north south. And also, it's in the earlier example, coming down this way here. But this is where, as a club, we're most likely to get our convergence experience. So it's a case of recognising it's coming in, visualising that wedge is coming in, and doing your best to be ready and high for when it comes. And you can usually tell the air, because there's a feel amongst the whole air where it's sort of getting kicked around and isn't as smooth between thermals as it should be. So if you're flying around in that, and then wherever you see that lump of good cloud, trying to make a dive for it, perhaps get a bit more height, and then connect with the convergence. I think what I'll do with the video later, I'll play it through from start to finish. It's only 3 minutes, and then we're running through and just quickly stop, because it's sometimes better actually looking at the sky and looking at what's actually there. I think that would be quite useful. Right, I've combined milk and mere together, because in terms of cross country, we're probably both doing fairly similar thing down there, northwards, assuming downwind, and lots of midges coming in, isn't there? He's in the sea breeze. He's clearly not listening. Oh, he's at there. Yeah. Right, a few things going on. It's worth mentioning that we've usually got a southerly wind flying those two sides. So the sea breeze comes in and it compounds. So usually at some point it will get to Mere, and you'll feel the wind pick up, and just like Westbury and Westerly, it's more difficult to get up. In fact, it's even more difficult because there's no convergence. It's just compounding, the two added together, and it just passes through there.
So when you say it kills me, you mean it kills? I mean, sorry, because I'll often be sorry there when that sea breeze starts to pick up, and it's still flying. Like
You'll still get thermals. Yeah. You'll get a scattered thermal going to 3 grand, whereas here, you might be getting really good thermals at 6 grand. So it's and over the years through the 80s, time and time again, we were seeing this difference, and gradually, not having the benefit of the internet, we worked out in our early days what was going on.
Probably, what would be?
Yeah. But it's assuming a southerly wind, so you're still going to get the sea breeze coming in this way, still acting against the southerly wind, and again this raggedy line, that's depicting the top of the convergence, convergence at altitude, and then the ground line, it's trying to depict that wedge that's working its way in, and that's the sea air on the ground, and that will that will transgress this way, perhaps only a bit if the wind's strong. If it's not very strong at all, it can start pushing all the way this way. In fact, going back 40 years, I think it was my first convergence experience. I had some nice flying going this way, and I got over Cheltenham, and the whole glider stopped dramatically and went vertically down with a dramatic change in the air mass around me. And then I got back up, and I flew in a straight line for 30 miles. And with hindsight, that's what was going on.
Punch through it.
You usually find a very, very, very buoyant bit of air going that way as it's all sort of being pushed along.
No, you know, you said about the satellite images earlier. So when you see the kind of cloud blue boundary, would that be at in your solid line on here, or
yeah,
the solid line?
I have got a couple of pictures coming up a bit further on, but yeah, that will be the edge, and it would tend to be blue there. And likewise, as the sea breeze pushes into there, there'd be a line. You see that as being blue, with the cumulus behind it. It's a very definite binary, you know, in a row. That's Milk and Mia. Any questions before we move on? Right.
One question on here. So in principle, if you're trying to go downwind from here, being the air before the sea breeze arrives, you might be able to just make use of the fact that it's undercutting, and you might have an easier ride. It might be easy to get away as the sea air arrives. If you're already at.
So what describe the scenario?
Well, you're trying to fly down. I guess my ambition is to fly from here back home to Bath, right?
Which is
40
well, somewhere down here.
Yeah, because I live just around there. So
in which case, yeah, in a southerly, you're probably not going to get. You're probably not going to get the convergence because the wind going that way, the sea breeze is working against the wind, and that whole air mass would tend to get pushed.
But with the southerly sea breeze help on that journey, in that as it arrives, you're going to get
this way.
Yeah, was it the clouding doesn't really just doubles this speed?
The quality of the air goes right down, so you're probably better going earlier.
He's going to get away
in the good air where you can get high and get there. Because as the sea breeze comes in, as James said, it can still be okay, but it's soggier, damper air, and the ceiling comes down.
There's not really any advantage in being kind of riding it almost being the convergence of you is just like when it going together.
It might work as it comes in. I mean, it's always a bit bumpy on the edge. It might work. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I tend to fly away from that because it's usually more of a chance of going down. So. Right, Frocester. So we've got Frocester here. Typically a west-northwest, sometimes a westerly wind. Sea breeze, fairly weak feature, but it's fairly consistent. Pushing it up the channel there, and you'll get, this is the convergence at altitude forming there, and then down at ground level, you've got this wedge formed there, which, because the wind's converging like that, the whole lot is being pushed over, so there's less opportunity for it to go that way, and more that way. So the convergence of the two air masses is causing that bubble of convergence to shift eastward.
So it's very likely to get sea breeze in Frocester.
Yeah, very, very, very often. Yeah. The only time it won't form is if the wind is so strong, the sea breeze can't act against it. So what
time of day does that normally set up?
It can come through quite early, sort of half 12, 1 o'clock on a good day. If this wind isn't very strong, let's say it's 10 miles an hour, and it's a good, warm and stable day, 12:30, 1 o'clock easily. So it can happen quite early. But as this wind increases, it's more difficult for it to work against it because it's quite a weak feature because it's only a distance.
I feel like maybe I'm generalising here, but every time I've seen reports of the sea breeze picking up at Frocester, by the time it usually gets there, people are usually done.
Oh yeah.
Stuff to do,
You've got to work ahead of the game. You've got to. You need that dotted line to be out here, and you need to get up and think about getting over and into it if you're
So
going
if
to
you are high and that convergence line is set up, you can see the cloud. Can you actually cross the Severn?
Oh yeah, I've had a magical day where I got up there, and you could actually. I was flying along here. I don't know, 6 or 7 miles, just flying in a straight line, going up.
And the clouds, obviously, the indicator is the cloud. You can see it. It's quite
Yeah.
clear.
When the video comes on, it'll be obvious, but inland you had nice cumulus, all at the same level, and then you see the convergence cloud, which is usually a black clump down here.
Yeah.
So it's very, very obviously different.
What kind of headwind did you have when you did that?
Hmm?
What kind of headwind did you have when you did the flight up over the channel?
Well, there's no headwind because it's converging, so.
Okay. Seriously, even with all the Matlin, really not at all.
To be honest, I can't remember the fine detail, but progress was very easy.
Right, interesting.
Yeah, the day is often over for the pilot, still on the hill by 1:30. You know, this is a hill where they're not working against each other, but there's more of a propensity for it to push together.
That's why I'm amazed there's no headwind, because you would have thought surely that kind of squeeze.
I mean, obviously, there's lots of variables. I mean, remember there's the variable of direction and the variable of this.
Yeah.
So depending upon the cosine and everything else, how it's forming, it may be good, it may be less good. Any more on Frocester before we move to Merthyr?
When the sea breeze is coming up, the Severn, it's got a massive catchment area, isn't it, which compresses it. Even when the part of the Irish Sea is like a northwest or even a northerly, some of it is still hooking around the corner and up the Severn. Is that just because of the height of the hills on either side of the Severn, or either side of the Severn that's capturing it?
So just describe what you mean by you talked about a catchment area.
Um,
I mean, it's such a weak feature, and you've almost got to be sitting there recording it with satellite pictures.
Yeah, but it's geographically it's a big feature, even if it's a weak.
It's a big feature, and generically, it's just coming in as a wedge, something like that. Which depends if the wind is more off to the south, that would all be biased up there because the wind is forcing against it that way. The more the westerly wind is, the more it's going to do what it is here. And the more westerly it is, the easier it's going to come in. I mean, I work over here, and quite often we have the sea breeze coming through at Malmesbury. In westerly, you can see the orange line and the big blue, nothing beyond it.
What I was trying to ask about was the volume of air that comes in. That will kind of sit there overnight and affects the next morning as well, won't it?
I don't know. I'll be making it up if I told you something.
Why the rest is so consistently blue.
All I'm telling you is what I've experienced many times. It's like hitting a dog over the head with a stick. Eventually you just have to learn what's going on by trial and error, which works well. But the good thing is you've got raster and satellite pictures, so you don't have to ruin it out. You can do a bit of learning before you experience it.
I guess you've seen it so many times now. You get so good at seeing it.
It's almost a fascination, I mean, if I'm with my girlfriend driving down to the coast and we're chatting away, and secretly in the background, you're watching all these air masses move around, and sometimes I won't mention it, but I generally don't because it's a bit nerdy. Especially, I mean, if I started talking about coastlines, it completely ruin it.
I think we need a full nerd weather topic where you can just go all out. Take pictures of everything and draw diagrams on it. Great. We'll love it.
Yeah. Right. That's Frocester. We'll move on to Merthyr. Has everybody got their locking wheel lights on? Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I'll describe it line by line. Now, in a west wind, the sea breeze will simply compound, and it will come all the way back here. They've experienced it down in the Gliding Club at Coombe. So that's how strong that compounding effect is. And we, where is it? Yeah, we used to have a flying site there in the Devizes at Oliver's Castle. We had some really weird days there. I mean, there was one day where the British record went from the Malverns to the other side. This is like 30 years ago. And they had 6,500 cloud base, and we couldn't get above 3. I mean, that's how different it was. You know, so that's the sort of difference that you can expect between sea air. And that's why, yeah, I think you're talking about the sea air at Mere, aren't you? No. It's basically why you don't want to be in the sea air. If you want to get up and move around high, you know, you don't want to be in the sea air. You want to be away from it. Right, so that's just talking about the compounding down there. Right, so in a light wind, a few different things going on. You'll get the sea breeze still penetrating there, as we talked about for Frocester, but in particularly light winds, all the valleys here form pretty much north-south, and you get the weird effect where the sea breeze is pushing in, and it pushes up the valleys. And you can sometimes see that at Merthyr, where you can see the blue bit coming, and you can see the changes, and it's especially useful on a very light wind day when it's difficult to get up, because you know what's about to hit you to get up and pursue your flight. And the opposite, in a stronger wind, you're actually getting the sea breeze coming through and compounding, which means that later in the day, I don't know if you guys have hung around often at Merthyr, when you've had a bit of wind early on, the sea breeze comes in, and it is ferocious as it comes through. Really, really quite intense.
So I think that was actually probably the sort of conditions that they have today in South East Wales. Because I know that Kirsty completed the triangle and she actually flew down. She started at Magic, I think, and then it went into the sort of the southerly, rather than going, around the Black Mountains. I think she took a southerly route.
Hold it. I quickly clicked on a few traces because I was at work and I really got a bit out. I did see somebody did a flight somewhere around that area, south of Abergavenny and Vale. Was that
I think that's right. And she did have a westerly float in it, and it was very light.
Yeah.
So stability-wise, not really sure, but yeah, it was. It would mean sort of the sort of conditions that they have today.
Yeah. So yeah.
64k triangle.
Really? It's great on the internet, isn't it? But
Yeah.
so what most of us, if we're getting up and we're going downwind, we start coming this way. We see the sea breeze. So many XC flights, if it's all out open XC, we tend to go more up this way, running away from the sea breeze and the convergence, and then come out here. I had a great flight about a decade ago where I came along this way here. I didn't really want to land out, and you could see just this very gentle convergence line forward, so I just stopped. And even though the wind was 10 miles an hour, it was enough where it formed. I was just able to pretty much straight line it and just fly all the way back. I mean, I only actually got as far as Blorings, because I came over to Blorings and I was met with a 30-mile-an-hour wind, and I landed there. So, you've got all these effects going on where I was stopped from going this way. It enabled me to get back, but I couldn't go all the way back because of the wind over there. So, the sea breeze is hitting you from every angle you can think of. I think after my first 25 years, every time I went out flying, I wanted to do XC. The first thing you look at is, where's the sea air going to hit me? How's it going to ruin my day? Because it tends to ruin the day more often than enhancing it. Greg's looking really confused. You're looking confused when I said that?
I'm tired now.
I'm tired.
second line please go to my head.
That's good, isn't it? Right. So we've probably only got about another 20 minutes left. Tools to help knowledge building. Right, I remember the whole reason I took the screenshot about 10 years ago. I was cycling here one evening, and it's one of those moments where you're out cycling and you look at what's going on and you can see nothing but a blue wedge all around you, and in the distance, there and there, you can see all the lines where the sea breeze has just pushed up against everything it can't quite move against. So, you know, back home a couple of hours later, and that's what was going on. So you had the big wedge of sea air coming in there, probably causing some convergence here, and then it's clear here on the south. It hasn't penetrated in quite so far because the wind was going this way, and it's more difficult to work against. So again, it's looking at the wind, using your imagination. If you sit back and look at it in that context, it's fairly clear what's going on.
You took a screenshot before or after flying?
There was no flight. I was out on a hike.
No flight. Okay.
Yeah, that was just me being interested on what was going on. I mean, all I could see was this bit. I got home, just look at the wider picture, and it confirms what I thought was going on. So it's just
So far as that, it's like Guildford far, isn't it?
yeah. It was quite cautious that day, so there was a lot of compounding going on as well. RAS was pretty useful. Has anybody not seen the RAS option, the convergence option within RAS?
I haven't seen it.
Oh right, you've used RAS?
No.
Oh right.
You can find
Do you have a look at I know you're so close to Westbury.
I've got a link to lazy grass. So I looked at that last night and got quite excited.
And you've got your binoculars for looking out to the hill, haven't you?
Yeah, I look at that and I just look and see if anyone's carrying egg light to the edge, and that's my forecast.
Especially for you then, if you go into non-lazy grass, you get, when you first go in, there's about 10 or 12 most used options, and then you can click this button here that I've chopped off, and it exposes the list to about 25 different options, all the different layers you can look at. I mean, you know, rain, wind at different heights, thermal speed, convergence, etc., etc. This is really useful for spotting convergence. So this was forecast from about 4 days out for last Sunday, which didn't manifest quite like that. What it's showing, generally the more excitable colours are the convergence. So it's showing a convergence all the way along the coast, all about. I took a screenshot of the wind as well. So there's the wind view, different parameter, and you've got the wind coming up there, the sea breeze coming in, and because it's, in this case, because it's not penetrating inland, it's a fairly narrow spread, so you can't usually work out the direction of the wind, although you can pretty much tell it is coming onshore because it's sea breeze convergence, and they do tend to nicely colour it, so you can see that disturbance going on. So you know that correlates with what's going on here. And if you step through it, what time is that? Actually, that's quite early. If you were to step through it and the wind wasn't, it's not too strong and it's really unstable, you'd find that line tends to sort of gradually move inland a bit. But those lumps there, you see how they're very obvious stepping down from the cloud base. So that's an indication that there's probably convergence out there. It's a bit more difficult to work out here because I'm quite high. Similar there, there's a line out there.
And this is in a met northerly, sea breeze westerly. I
think this was a northwesterly. Just looking at the sat picture I had in the middle there, it indicated it was doing that. Yeah, and there's a sat pic showing it. So from memory, it was a northwest. You can see the northwest is coming in there, and then the sea breeze is pushing up as hard as it can against the northwest line. And you can see it's pushed all the way through here. So with the northwesterly wind here, the wind's been compounding and it's caused a big blue hole there, which actually makes, I mean, Bale Hill down there, we can sometimes get good conditions, but when it's like this, it's actually pretty crap because you're getting all the compounded air, you know, you don't want the air coming off the sea, it's not as good, whereas it's going to be much better over here, or better still at Convergence over here. Still see it out there?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very definite, clear indication. I mean, you don't tend to get dramatic changes in cloud base like that.
It is now you pointed out, but before that I would just be thinking that's perspective and that's closer and that's further away.
Yeah.
But now, you know, when you pointed out, yeah, there's a definite line.
Is even like the cloud just behind, above and behind your wing, higher than the one to the right? Yeah, is that that one that it pointed on? Is that lower than the one to the left of that?
I can't tell from that. The only thing I can see from that is this cloud here. In hindsight of knowing that I've got into Convergence.
And can you, looking at that one cloud hanging down the background there, can you, in your mind's eye at that point, visualise where the convergence line is, or do you need to go and sniff it out a bit?
Yeah, well, I'd look at that, and I'm trying to work out. Is it still westerly?
I think that's Warminster.
No, that might.
I think that's
It might be through.
No, because there's not that much range south of Froome.
That's okay, yeah. So that probably is Warminster, and that's the forest, isn't it, going up towards Longley. So where are we looking at there? So that's probably.
Find due west this point.
That's probably
south, isn't it?
South of Froome and coming up to that area of hills near Alfred's Tower, near Longley, and it's probably there because it's easier for the sea breeze to push in. It hasn't managed to quite get to the westerly bit yet. I'm pretty sure I flew more off to the northwest to connect with the bit that was out there. But yeah, you assuming the sea breeze out there and you were going for that, then yeah, you try and get as high as possible. That might be what I was going to hazard a guess, 3 or 4 miles away. Something of that order. If that was 3 or 4 miles away, I'd be concerned about the wedge of air that's just approaching me, and it's probably going to be just below. So you'd want to get high and start pushing that to get into the stuff going on above it. Move on just a bit. Oh, stop. Let's go back a little bit. So here you can very obviously see the drier air, the much higher cloud base inland, because you know you're looking up at that. You know that's quite a distance above. I think I gained about 1,000 foot on this particular day up amongst the edges of the clouds, and it was still above me, so there was a significant difference there.
So on a hang glider, which I've got no idea about the feel of them, are you going to get a really sort of strong bang? And you know, how do you, when you feel
that was all really quite serene. You know, there was just something like 3 up, you know, 4 up, just flying around.
Pictured it being more dramatic. You know.
4 up's still quite decent.
Yeah, It can be. It's not normally dramatic.
As in the difference between your left wing and your right wing, you know, if you're sort of surfing that line of convergence, I can imagine when you're in and out of it, I can picture it as being quite dramatic change.
Most convergence from the Bristol Channel isn't super dramatic because it's such a small feature.
Yeah.
It's not a particularly strong sea breeze. Go down to the South Downs on a really unstable day, and that would be dramatic.
Right.
You know, nice high temperature and.
Scary for us.
Bigger difference.
Scary for us on the floppies.
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't flown paragliders.
I hear a lot of people flying the sea breeze down there.
But yeah, everybody does it, so clearly it's okay. Yeah, because they tend to go from Devil's Dyke and then they head off into Kent. So there's quite regular flights of sort of Handbacay going that way, and the likes of Mark Watts just turn around and come back again. I think a few others have as well now, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's all in the kind of